Michael Trimpe has been a forensic scientist for the past 38 years at the Hamilton County Coroner's Crime Laboratory and currently serves as the laboratory director. He has published articles, presented papers, and has translated his work into trace evidence. In addition, he has served many roles in his community, such as president of the Midwestern Association of Forensic Scientists and founder and past chairman of the International Scientific Working Group for Gunshot Residue. He will be speaking to you today about the importance of the evidence in forensic investigation.
When a crime is committed, evidence is submitted to a forensic laboratory for analysis. And my concern is that trace evidence analysis examinations are being eliminated in crime labs across the country. And that concerns me. You see, in a forensic laboratory, there are typically 5 areas of disciplines. That's drugs, firearms, serology, DNA, and toxicology. Those can give you conclusive results. For instance, that white powder is heroin, or that DNA came from Mr. Theodore, or those bullets were fired from that gun. The trace evidence is more considered circumstantial evidence, because while we can identify and compare tiny things under a microscope, we can't always say that these 2 things were once the same. And forensic crime lab directors across the country are a little nervous about that. They, with the accreditation procedures that we have today, they like things to be more black and white. And so they're shying away from trace evidence. Here's some examples of trace evidence: hairs, fibers, paint, glass, soil, nightable liquids, a lot of different things that under the microscope we can identify or compare, that I think need to be considered by courts in a trial. We also have to consider the CSI effect. Forensic science is popular these days. And so prosecutors are hesitant to go to trial without a forensic lab report because jurors are more informed. They expect to see forensic science in the court of law. And sometimes trace evidence is the only forensic evidence in the case. Now, trace evidence is based on Locard's exchange principle, which says that when 2 things come in contact with each other, there's always a transfer of some type of evidence. So what I'd like to do is take you through showing you some real trace evidence from real cases and show you how those things make a difference in the court of law. Here, for instance, was a breaking and entering, and a door was pried open, and that door had previously been painted white, orange, and green. And when the police got a suspect, they found in the trunk of his car a crowbar. We looked at that crowbar under the microscope and found smears of white, green, orange paint. And those paints corresponded in all chemical and physical properties to the known white, green, and orange paint on the door. Good evidence for a jury to consider. Here's a case where someone was hit by a car and left to die on the side of the road. We took the victim's clothing, scraped it down, looked at all the debris under the microscope, and found a little particle of automotive paint. When the police got a suspect, we looked at a chip of paint from that suspect's car, and lo and behold, there was 4 layers of paint in both of them. We could identify and analyze all 4 of those layers of paint and saw that they had the same chemical and physical properties. And so, again, good evidence to submit in court. Here's a case of an armed robbery where the victim saw the suspect jump a fence as he was leaving and snag his coat on the fence. When the police came, they collected some fibers from the top of that fence and when they got the suspect, they collected his jacket, and we looked at the fibers under the microscope and saw that they were the same acrylic and polyester fibers were found in both. Now, in a case like this, we can't say that those fibers came from that jacket and no other source, because there can be other jackets with the same kind of fibers in it. But it is good circumstantial evidence. And consider the case, and this happens many times, where the police think they have a suspect, they think they've got the right guy, and we analyze the fibers, and they're not the same. In that case, we can help exonerate someone. And to us, that's more important, showing someone is innocent than they're guilty. He came in through the kitchen window and stepped on a piece of bread and left a shoe print in the bread. And when they got the suspect, he had soil in the grooves of his shoes. But in one of the grooves was missing a piece of soil that looked just like that piece of soil on that bread. And that physically fit into the soil in the grooves of the shoe. So we had soil analysis, physical fit analysis, and shoe print comparison, all from someone stepping on a piece of bread. The jury was fascinated. Now here's a case, it was a homicide case, where a shoe print was left in blood at the scene. And in this case, we could be conclusive because we found individual characteristics, the little nicks and cuts and gashes that you pick up from stepping on sharp objects. And this shoe from the suspect had those individual characteristics that were left in the shoe print in blood at the scene. So we could say that that shoe made that print. Sometimes we are asked to just help in investigations. So in this case, they had a tire track in snow, and the police just had no clue what kind of car they were looking for, and so they asked us to help. And we have tire guides, so we could look at that tire print and identify the kind of tire that made it, and then from that, you might be able to give them some help. They're looking for a pickup truck or a sports car or a sedan or whatever. So sometimes we just are helpful in investigation. When someone breaks a window, tiny shards of glass come back onto the clothing. You throw a rock through a window, some of that window bends and some of that glass comes back on you. It's microscopic little pieces of glass that you can't see. When they bring the suspect's clothing into us and we scrape it down and we can look at all those little particles under the microscope, we can find hundreds of shards of freshly broken glass. And then we can compare that to the known window that was broken at the scene, in density and refractive index and other properties. Now again, I can't say that the glass on his clothing came from that window and no other window, because there can be other windows with the same kind of glass. But still, again, it's helpful information. Now, in these kinds of cases, physical fit cases, again, we can be pretty conclusive. So if that hit and run scene, there's a car part left at the scene, and that car part physically fit into the suspect's car, damaged car, and a perfect fit. So we know it came from that car. Or the case of a bank robber writes a note and leaves that note at the bank, and it was torn from a pad of paper. And the pad of paper is in his car. And we can see that this paper physically fit into that pad perfectly. Or the case of a victim that was bound with tape. And we can compare that tape to a known roll of tape that was in the suspect's apartment. And the ends of that roll physically fit together. So we know that that tape on the victim came from that roll of tape in the suspect's apartment. Or the case where a blade of a knife was found in the body of a victim in the morgue during the autopsy. So it was a homicide. And the handle of that knife was still in the pocket of the suspect. So the blade and the handle physically fit together. Why you would carry around handle without a blade? I don't know. This one's even better. Someone had a vacant house, and they boarded it up, and they put boards down inside the windows with screws sticking up as a deterrent to someone breaking in. Well, this guy did break in, committed a homicide in the vacant house, and stepped on some of those screws. And then sure enough, when the police caught him, he had a screw sticking out the bottom of the shoe still. We could take that screw out of the shoe and compare it to the broken screws at the seam, and lo and behold, one of them exactly physically fit together. So we know that that shoe is at that crime scene. Again, good information for a court to know. This is a case where a lady gave birth to a baby, put it in a plastic bag, and threw it in the dumpster. So we have the plastic bag from the dumpster. We have a roll of plastic bags from the suspect's apartment. And the way plastic bags are made, the dye is extruded through haphazardly. And so with the correct lighting, you can put those two bags next to each other and see the streaks of dye that exactly match one from one to the other. So we know that bag came from the last bag on that roll. When a gun is fired, the hammer of the gun hits the back of the cartridge, ignites the primer residue in there, which ignites the gunpowder, which sends the bullet out the barrel of the gun. And you can see gunpowder coming out the barrel as well. But in all the cracks and crevices of the gun, this heat of explosion, primer residue particles are formed and fall on anything in the near vicinity of that gun, including the shooter's hands. And so we can look at those particles under a scanning electron microscope, and we can identify them as gunshot residue particles. Now, I can't say that this person fired the gun because he has gunshot residue on his hands, but he has some explaining to do, because studies that have been performed on people in different occupations and all kinds of population studies, people just don't have gunshot residue on them. So why do you have it on? This is an example of a hair under a scanning electron microscope. To give you an idea, that little particle that we're zooming in on is a gunshot residue particle. Here's a case, another homicide case, where two people struggled with each other and knocked over a Christmas tree. And there were 26 ornaments on that tree with 26 different types of glitter that were broken at the scene. The police got a suspect. They took tape lifts of his vehicle seats and submitted them to us. Now, glitter can differ in size, shape, color, layer structure, the chemical makeup of it. And in this particular case, we had 26 different glitters at the scene, and we found 9 different glitter in his car seats that happened to correspond to 9 of the 26 glitter at the scene. Here's my Excel spreadsheet from the case. A lot of analysis done, but you can see that we're comparing color, size, shape, the chemical makeup of the different layers in each piece of glitter. And the 9 that we found in his car seat corresponded to 9 of the 26. And then a fun case, a guy broke and entered into a basement window, and the police caught him pretty much right away after the crime. And he had spider webs in his hair. And the cop noticed that there was a lot of spider webs inside that broken window in the basement. So he collected some from the basement, some from his hair, and brought them to me, which started a month-long research project on spiders to find out that some spiders do have differences in their webs. The diameter of the web can be different, the chemical makeup of the web can be a little different, and sometimes how they deposit their glue and the shapes of the glue that they deposit can be different. I'm showing you a couple pictures of spider glue. Now it's the positive. But in that case, it was very helpful in court to say that we couldn't find any differences between the spider webs on his hair and the spider webs at the scene, even in all the dust and debris that was in there. So the point is, there's many different miscellaneous fragments, articles, materials that we can identify and compare under a microscope. Cosmetics, wood, pollen, ignitable liquids, explosives, a lot of different things that I didn't show you pictures of. But in my opinion, we need to consider these things in a court of law. Juries need to see all the evidence to help them better arrive at the truth, because they're making the decision of whether someone is innocent.